Welcome to the course on church history. I'm Dr. Stephen Myers. I'm with the Institute for Biblical and Scientific Studies. And you get a lot more courses, information, charts we use at www.bibleandscience.com. In the background, you can see the great Church of Sophia in Istanbul. In this church history course, we want an overview of church history starting at the very beginning, the birth of the church in Acts chapter 2, and then going all the way up to the present time. We won't spend much time on the book of Acts because that's also covered in a session on New Testament survey. Here is a good overview of church history. They all start with P's to help you remember. First, we have Pentecost, when we have the birth of the church, the Apostolic age. Then we have persecution, around 64 to 313 A.D. Then we have the political union of church and state, starting with Constantine. Then we have the Pope's power and prosperity. Then we have the Protestant Reformation, 1517 A.D. And then we have Pietism and revivals from the 16th to 20th century. And then lastly we have postmodernism in the 21st century. So we want a quick overview of church history. The Apostolic age, the book of Acts, from 33 to 64 AD. The key verse for the book of Acts is chapter 1, verse 8. It tells us to go into Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth with the gospel. And so this is a good outline for the book of Acts. You have Judea, Acts chapter 1 through 7. We have the birth of the church in Acts chapter 2. We have Stephen being stoned in Acts chapter 7. And from this stoning, it scatters the church into Samaria. And then we have Paul's missionary journeys going into the uttermost parts of the earth. Acts 13 through 28. So we have Judea, the birth of the church, the stoning of Stephen. Then we come to Samaria, Acts chapter 8 through 12. We have Philip's ministry in Acts chapter 8. We have Saul's conversion in Acts chapter 9. And Peter's ministry, Acts 9 through 12. In Acts chapter 13 through 28, the last half of the book of Acts, we have Paul's 3 missionary trips, and his final trip being an imprisonment taken to Rome. And it's during these missionary trips that he also writes letters or epistles to the churches and people along the way. In Acts chapter 15, there is the great Jerusalem Council on what to do about the Gentiles. And there was a big compromise of the Jews with the Gentiles. Should we lay all these burdens and laws upon these new Gentile converts? And in Acts chapter 15, verse 28, it says, "For it seemed good to the Holy Ghost and to us to lay upon you no greater burden than these necessary things, that ye abstain from meat offered to idols, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication, from which if ye keep yourselves, ye shall do well. Fare ye well." After the Jerusalem Council, Paul went on his second and third missionary journeys. He finally came back to Jerusalem. They accused him of bringing a Gentile into the temple. He was arrested, and they sent him on to Rome, to the emperor. And after that, he wrote his prison epistles. Some think that he was released and went on a 4th missionary journey to Spain and to Crete and some other areas. Here we have a nice chart of the overview of church history in the book of Acts in the New Testament. First of all, we have the life of Christ in the Gospels. Then we have church history in the book of Acts. And during this time, there's a number of epistles or letters that are written. There are the Pauline epistles written by Paul. And then there are the general epistles written by others like Peter, Jude, James, and John. Now here, the book of Acts, we have the beginning of the church in Jerusalem. And then we have Paul's missionary journeys. And during these journeys, he wrote these different books. We have the prison epistles while he was in prison in Rome. In Ephesians, Colossians, Philemon, and Philippians. We have the pastoral epistles, which we believe Paul was freed from jail, and he wrote to Timothy and Titus. Then we have the book of Revelation. A key event in church history is the beginning of the persecution of Christians in 64 A.D. This is the first imperial persecution. Nero blames the Christians for the burning of Rome in 64 A.D. And Christians are used as torches to light Nero's garden. It's believed that Nero needed more room, so he had part of Rome burnt, and he blamed it on the Christians. Famous saying, the blood of the martyrs was the seed of the church. Christians were forced to live in the catacombs of Rome. And finally, Paul was beheaded in Rome about 67, 68 A.D. Another key, very important, was the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 A.D. by Titus. This caused the scattering of the Jews and Christians around the world. And as a result of this, Christianity is spread throughout the Roman Empire. There was the first Jewish revolt, and resulted in Vespasian coming, and then he had to go back to Rome to become emperor, and Titus was left to destroy Jerusalem. A key event. A key writer, person at this time, was Josephus. He was a Jewish historian born about 37 A.D. During the first Jewish revolt, which was from 66 to 70 A.D., he was captured and taken to Rome, where he wrote the Jewish Wars about the first Jewish revolt, the antiquity of the Jews from the creation to the fall at Masada, and against Ephraim, who defended Jews against pagan slander. He gives valuable information about the New Testament and early church background. We want to now look at an overview of all the church history we've covered so far. You can get copies of these charts on our website, BibleandScience.com. We want to review now. We have the beginning of the church at Pentecost. We have the Apostolic age. We have the persecution of the early Christians. Then we have the political union. That was in 313 A.D. with Constantine, making it legal for Christians to practice their religion, and united the church with the state. We then have the rise of the popes and their power. We have a great schism between the Eastern Church and the Western Church. The Western Church would be the Roman Catholic Church. The Eastern, we have the Orthodox Church. We have Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, and Eastern Orthodox. We have another great schism in the West with the Protestant Reformation by Martin Luther in 1517, nailing the 95 Theses to the door of the Wittenberg Church. Martin Luther founded the Lutherans. The Moravians split off of the Lutherans with Count Zinzendorf. Some other great leaders of the Protestant Reformation was Zwingli. From Zwingli came the Anabaptist movement. From also the Mennonites. Another great leader, John Calvin, who founded the Reformation Church, the Reformed Church. Then we have another great leader, John Knox in Scotland, founding the Presbyterian Church. Then we see another split with Henry VIII not getting an annulment, so he splits from the Roman Catholic Church, with Cranmer leading the way. And under the Church of England here, we have two main groups, the Puritans who wanted to purify the Church of England. We have the Separatists who wanted to separate from the Church of England, and they did, and became pilgrims that came to America. And from these separatists, there was several groups that formed. We have the Congregational Church. Mainly think of the Pilgrims. We have the Baptists with Roger Williams in Rhode Island. And we have split-offs from the Baptists. We have the Church of Christ. We have William Miller, who claimed Christ was coming back in 1845. We have the Seventh-day Adventists who split from that. Then we have another group, Methodists, John Wesley founding the Methodists. And a split off from the Methodists is the great Pentecostal movement. The Roman Catholics have several orders. We have the Francis of Assisi, the Dominicans, and the Jesuits. Then we have a whole, trying to get them all back together again, the World Council of Churches. So this gives you a whole overview of church history and where some of the different denominations have come from. We now have some questions we want to review. The birth of the church occurred